Hello, I'm Jackie Lucky, your financial planning maestro. This series of podcasts is aimed at financial planning professionals and also those who are looking to enter the financial planning profession. We will be talking during the podcast about all things Certified Financial Planner certification related, talking to other CFPs around the world, and also we will be dropping in on some new entrants who've just entered the financial planning profession, and we'll be checking up along the way on a regular basis with them to see how they're getting on. I hope you enjoy today's podcast. Hello and welcome. I'm Jackie Lucky, your financial planning maestro. And in today's podcast, we are revisiting our two new entrants to the profession, and that is James Winship and Megan Wicks. Hello to the pair of you.
Hi there.
Hi, Jackie.
Thanks for joining us again. Now, it's been a few months since we caught up, and I'm really eager to hear from the pair of you how you've been getting on, ups and downs and things that you've been celebrating. I know that Megan in particular has been celebrating, but more about that in a moment. So, when we last caught up last year, you gave some great advice to employers who are taking on graduates about the extra support that you've been getting with the Verve Group. So, James, let's start with you. Tell us, what have you been up to since we last met?
So since we've last spoke, it's really been pretty much non-stop paraplanning for the last couple of months. I think with being an outsourced paraplanning company, it's definitely seemed like Christmas has been one of the busier periods for us. I think with advisors wanting to get as many client meetings and reports completed before the Christmas break. So over the past couple of months, I think particularly through the back end of October and November, you could really see that the number of cases that were being submitted to our system was really increasing. So it became a bit of a challenge for us to try and get them all out in time and make sure we kept all the advisors happy. Yeah.
And did you, I guess, as parasols, setting specific deadlines for the advisors and working with them, to jiggle your workload to make sure everything's delivered on time?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have our we have our turnaround times, and I think our relationship with the advisors, that it has to be a little bit give and take. So I think towards the back end of Christmas, there's a general acceptance that look, we'll try and get out as much as possible. However, they have to accept that we've got many cases in our systems, and we'll work through them as quick as we can. So I think day to day, it really it helped me develop, I think, the Christmas push, because it just involved keeping up to date, or trying to keep up to date, trying to keep the advisors up to date with our progress as much as possible, and trying to, whether it was following up a case that's been on hold for a while, whether it's been some documents that a provider hasn't provided that we've asked for. So it was a real experience. It was a real challenge, but I think one that we all really quite enjoyed in the end.
Yeah. So much of it is about communication of your time management, isn't it? Rather than not just the doing of all of those things. It's keeping everybody in the loop to make sure that everybody's confident and happy with, how things are progressing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I feel like most advisors that they'll accept that every now and again that there might be a little bit of a delay with a case, but as long as they keep updated, they understand these things happen. It's not necessarily anybody's fault. So yeah, I think that's been something that I've really enjoyed, actually. I feel like, I think I mentioned it in the last time I purchased a diary, and that's really helped me, and I think that's really helped me come on leaps and bounds as a paraplanner in this period.
Yeah, getting organised and then giving you the confidence to say, actually, something is going to be late, or, when do you need it by?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, great, fantastic. Well, it sounds like you've been really developing your interpersonal skills then over the last couple of months. And Megan, what's been going on in the world of apricity compliance?
Yes. So since we last spoke, Jackie, it's been very manic. December was incredibly busy for us as a Pristity. We had a lot of client meetings to squeeze in. So that facilitated a lot of admin work off the back of that to finalise before the end of the year. We've just started a big campaign. It's been spearheaded this month where we're offering clients to sign up to our system and use our tech for £1 a month. Wow. So needless to say, we've had a lot of traction from that and we're gearing to have a really busy 2022.
Wow, that's fantastic, isn't it? So,
yeah.
That's just a great start to the year. £1 a month, blimey.
I know.
Sign me up. Where do I sign up? Sign me up. I don't need any compliance, but sign me up anyway. I don't mind. And Megan, you've got some really great news about your degree, haven't you?
Definitely. So I managed to attend my graduation at Newcastle finally at the beginning of November. So it was a bit of an emotional experience, feeling that my time as a student had finally come to an end.
Yeah, got closure on that one.
Definitely. But it was bittersweet. The day was lovely. I saw some old friends. And funnily enough, 3 of the 4 housemates that I used to live with, they've all fallen into finance as well. So, one's working in HR in a bank, one's working in debt management, the other one's in EY. So we've all really fallen into finance.
Wow, that's interesting, isn't it? Which obviously not your intention for all 4 of you.
Definitely not. We did 2 of my friends at uni, we all did French and history. Another one of my friends did some sort of STEM course. So all of us falling into finance has just been a bit of a journey, really, but definitely a fun one.
Yeah. And, it's funny because I think we talked on our very first podcast about how so many, financial advisors and planners fall into the profession. And you've done just that yourself.
Definitely.
History repeats itself.
Yeah.
No, well, we're very pleased to have you in the profession. Definitely, definitely. And James, we were just saying, weren't we? Your graduation is going to happen later this year.
Yeah, so I've finally been given a date for my graduation. So it'll be happening later in the summer in June. But yeah, really looking forward to it. Finally get to see everybody from university again, because we haven't actually had a chance to all meet up yet. So yeah, really looking forward to that one.
It's such a shame, isn't it? But yes, hopefully it's going to be very worth the wait. It certainly sounds that, Megan thought it was worth the wait as well, didn't you, Megan?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, lovely. So let's look at some of your highs and lows then of the last few months. So James, tell us about, what's, apart from obviously your huge skills that you're upskilling yourself of time management and communication skills. I guess that's probably one of the big things for you. What sort of ups and downs have you been experiencing apart from managing this workload that you've been grappling with?
Well, I definitely think that was one of my highs of the past month. I think once that final case was submitted for Christmas, it felt like a huge weight off our shoulders. But we've been very lucky at Verve. I've actually had kind of a few different Christmas activities, kind of team bonding days, a health and wellness day, and I've really enjoyed them. At the events, they really encourage us to get to know our colleagues a little bit more and be a bit more open with them. And I think that's really helped. We've found out a bit more about each other's interests and their own journey to this point. And I think it's been really interesting because I know that paraplanning can sometimes be considered a bit less sociable than other roles, with it not being as client facing. But I really don't think that's the case at all. And as you get to know people, it really does make the role a lot more enjoyable, and you definitely feel a lot less pressured to ask for help if you have any questions. And then we've all been allocated a new buddy, one of the new starters. So it's actually, I think that's been one of my highs as well. It turns out that we had a couple of mutual friends, so getting to know him was very interesting. But it's also been a kind of real test of the knowledge, helping setting them up on the systems, helping them kind of get going with the data gathering and producing illustrations, stuff like that. So yeah, that's been another of my highs.
Yeah, gosh, you've been beavering away, not only helping the advisors but helping new members of staff as well. That's amazing. And what about the not so great sides of what you've been up to the last few months? I guess kind of learning to cope with that workload is probably one of them.
Yeah, definitely. So it has been hard. I think at times you feel like, oh, maybe I'm not getting quite as many reports off as I need to. But I think, everybody understands. And every now and again, you're going to have kind of a slow day. Sometimes you might get 5 reports done. Sometimes you might only get 1 or sometimes none. But I think it's just trying to manage your own expectations and not put too much pressure on yourself because everybody is very different. And I think that leads into perhaps the biggest law I think of the past months is unfortunately I sat RO3 and it didn't quite go as planned the first time. But these things happen. I found it a very tough one because I feel like this exam, it's kind of twofold. It's not just the knowledge part, it's the application as well.
Yes.
So in some aspects, I feel like my knowledge of the subject is absolutely like sound. But then my exam technique for it perhaps isn't there.
Yeah. And
it was one thing I in hindsight now, when I did the exam, there was a couple of calculations and in my head, the calculations were kind of my strength, but I ended up going through to double check them. And then I ended up running out of time in the exam. So it's certainly a thing to learn. But then also I feel like perhaps my biggest kind of nugget of wisdom, if you must, in the past few months would be kind of getting the work-life balance right.
Yeah.
So I definitely feel like I think, especially throughout November and December, I was perhaps putting too much pressure on myself. I actually sat my RO3 exam the day we broke up for the Christmas break.
Oh, wow.
And I think I got to the point where I was becoming kind of almost a bit obsessive with revision. And I wasn't wanting to put my book down on an evening if I felt like I didn't know something. And then when I did, I almost felt guilty that, I should be revising right now. Yes. But I actually think that perhaps hindered me ever so slightly with my work because I wasn't relaxing and I wasn't winding down in my spare time, which I believe is quite important. And I think that since Christmas, I think I've been trying to put more of an emphasis on going to the gym, doing something that I enjoy, like sport or playing football. And I felt that that's really helped me actually when it's come to sitting down to revise. And I felt like I've definitely been a lot more focused since the Christmas break.
Yeah. And, thanks for opening up and being so honest about it, because I think, that a lot of our listeners have been and are going through this similar sorts of experience. I think we all, as you kind of like to be, it's nice to be needed, it's nice to be wanted, isn't it? To be able to cope with that workload and, to sign up for these exams. But sometimes, you just have to, press the pause button for that extra couple of weeks. And I think you get to a stage, I know we see it with some of the CFP training that I do, that you can't see the wood for the trees because your brain is kind of wound up, like a tight spring, and actually having that time out, playing football and doing more relaxing things, perhaps a little bit of exercise, with your football is a great thing to do. And just, because I quite often, I don't know what you were like when you were at school, but my mum would just say to me, I don't know why you're cramming, the night before an exam, because if you don't know now, it's too late. And I kind of think, I remember that when I'm studying for exams as well, that, there comes a point where you've just got to let your subconscious, let it sink in, haven't you?
Yeah, well, absolutely. I'm exactly the same. I feel like I work best when I've kind of got a little bit of pressure on me, whether that's a time constraint or something else. But yeah, sometimes I think you do have to just take a step back from it and think, look, I'm not quite ready for this now. I need to have another couple of weeks or something like that. And it is something that I don't think I really did. I don't think I was particularly fair on myself before Christmas. But like I said, it's something that you definitely learn from. And it's something that I will definitely look to implement in the future, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And keep an eye on it, and as, particular times of the year, you'll find that you'll get more busy than usual, and, it'll ebb and flow a bit, and just, kind of be conscious of, the end of the tax year, and obviously this time of the year in January, things are all a bit manic, aren't they? So, but yes, great that you are recognising it so early on in your career as well, because I think so many financial planners, compliance officers out there, just kind of get their head down and think that actually that's part of their job. That's kind of part of what's required. But I think the pandemic has certainly shown all of us who did that kind of thing that actually that's not really living, that's existing. So it's great to hear that you are taking those steps to, obviously protect yourself, healthy and well-being as well. So Megan, what have you been up to? What have been your highs and lows, other than your getting your degree and graduation ceremony? What have you been up to the last few months?
So in terms of my lows, really just to echo what James said, it's definitely been my experience as well with RO3 and specifically with CII. For instance, I went to sit my exam on the 13th of December, actually, but the online invigilator system that the CII use hadn't correctly acknowledged me. So I got there, sat down, and they wouldn't release my paper. So I know, all fun. So I had to rearrange, but because it was getting close to Christmas, I thought, you know what, I'll just let myself enjoy Christmas and I'll book it for the 4th of January. So I went to sit it on the 4th of January for the first time, and it crashed. The online system crashed on the 60th minute. So I didn't get to my results for 4 days. Unfortunately, I had failed, but that was 4 days of me waiting around, not knowing whether or not I needed to continue revising, whether I should be anxious. So ultimately, James and I, we're going to go to the test centre up in Gateshead, so we can try and sit that physically, try and avoid those virtual problems.
Yes, yeah. Oh dear, it's tough, isn't it, when things like that happen, and it's hard when you've put in all that work as well, and then it's kind of like you get there and they go, nope.
Yeah,
you go,
definitely. I know. I think it's just one of those struggles that we have to face now. We're working from home and, you know, the virtual world. I think RO3, it's just really dry. We mentioned this last time we spoke. I've just really struggled getting into revision. And, you know, I've tried to tackle it in all different forms of revision. So ultimately, I've decided to start from scratch. I'm starting to reread the book. Start from scratch with an exam scheduled for the 1st of Feb. But
no pressure.
No pressure, I know. But I just think rereading it is going to help me cement the process behind it.
Yes.
And I do think you start to feel pressure when you see others around you pass the exam. You start to think, oh, am I falling behind? But, you know, we're all at different stages. Some people have had a little bit of experience in finance beforehand, whereas James and I, fresh out of uni, we haven't had any financial service experience, you know. So we're all just plodding along as best as we can. I think that's important. Like James said, you need to make sure that you prioritise yourself as well. Yeah,
definitely. And do you know what? I think sometimes, and I know it's tough not passing the exams first time, but it happens to all of us. It has happened, certainly to me, and does and will continue to happen to all of us. And I think sometimes if you can start to think about how you could apply some of that knowledge that you're studying, or maybe think through, you know, a fictitious situation, think, oh, well, you know, if that happened in the office, or if that situation I was thinking about in the office, or the client I was looking at last week was slightly different, you know, what would I do differently? And sometimes just trying to bring it to life a little bit. Again, it's, you know, getting different parts of your brain to work a little bit, isn't it? Rather than just think, oh, I've got to eat this technical manual and see if I can regurgitate it, you know, at will, when I need it. It is a tough call. And some exams, the content of some exams just don't suit some of us. You still have to do them, but you're kind of like, phew, when you get through, thank goodness for that, throw it over your shoulder and that's it. I'm never going to look at that again.
I think it's safe to say I won't be going into tax specialisms in the future.
There are probably a lot of financial advisors and planners out there who are definitely nodding their head at this moment in time. I won't say that I'm one of them, but I'm one of them. So yes, absolutely. And obviously your high is your graduation ceremony, and any other highs that you've experienced the last few months?
Yes. So actually we had a kickoff day, which is a company-wide day out, I suppose, early in January. So we all got together, we discussed the future of the Verve Group, and it was just nice to hear all the different types of opportunities that we'll have within the group going forward. So we got to hear from our CEO, Kathy Harrison, and a lot of other team members about what we can expect. We got to put in some suggestions as well. So I think it was nice to feel heard. We managed to participate in some fun activities. We had yoga breaks and mindfulness sessions to do some meditation. And because, it's the start of the year, health kick, some people decided to do a quick 15-minute HIIT class as well on our lunch break, which was quite fun.
Yikes.
I know.
Yoga sounds good. I'm not sure about the HIIT class, but each to their own. Oh, fantastic. And I guess, for the pair of you who've spent so much of the last couple of years away from the office in lockdown, it's probably been great to get out and to, like you said, to spend time physically with the rest of the team, and great to be able to, participate in growing, a good company culture, isn't it?
Definitely. I think since we started on the 1st of Feb, I think the team's grown from 40 to nearly 80. So we've grown quite significantly as a company throughout that year.
Yeah, that's significant. You've got a lot of hard work keeping up. And have you found it? How did you find it meeting everybody? I mean, I guess James, you were there too. What was it like? Were you nervous? Because there must be so many people that you haven't met before.
From when the team grew, I think at Apricity, in particular, it was generally a small team. Now we've grown to about 10, which is still relatively small, but I think it's been a welcomed experience, because Apricity has been growing in terms of its outsourced clients. We've needed that internal group, I suppose, the regroup. So we've got more file checkers, we've got additional consultant work. So it's definitely been an enriching experience, I think. And following lockdown, my job in lockdown in 2020, I was working from home every day. I hadn't talked to anyone in the firm that I had been in. I hadn't met anyone in person. So I think it's just been a very welcoming experience being able to meet people in the flesh again. Yes,
it makes a difference, doesn't it? It kind of
enriches
definitely our lives, I think, more than we perhaps appreciated it did in the past, with our nose to the grindstone all the time. So that's fantastic to hear. And James, just coming back to you for a minute, what sorts of things have you got on the horizon in the next few months, apart from the pair of you kicking that tax exam into the long grass and passing it and never seeing it ever again for the rest of your days? What other sorts of training have you got going on? Have you got anything planned?
Well, I was going to say fingers crossed we get out of the way. I think, as I touched on previously with our with the new buddies, it's really just helping them get to grips with kind of their role. So they've started off. They do a few online courses to start building up their knowledge. And then they start applying it to the data gathering side. So we've really been quite involved with helping them, helping check their work so far, kind of helping them get familiar with the different kind of products and the different kind of cases that they might be dealing with on their journey. So I think it'll just be a little bit more of that for the time being. I know that my buddy, he's called Tom, he's actually training to become a paraplanner himself.
Great.
So it's actually been quite good. We've been able to kind of, he's been asking me, it seems like a million questions a day, and it's usually me, the one that's asking all the questions. So it's been, it's been quite an experience. It seems like roles reversed. That's been kind of a real test of my knowledge and to see how far I've come. It's been actually a little bit of a confidence boost because I still feel like a newbie myself into the financial world. But then you suddenly start to realize how much knowledge you've kind of accrued over the past year.
Yeah.
So that's been very fun. I've got to say as well, Verve are very good. They encourage us to kind of attend as many virtual seminars as possible, whether it be about different paraplanning kind of fundamentals. So I know I've sat through one regarding templates, and it was interesting just picking up like different tips from more experienced paraplanners from kind of different companies and different ways of operating, of just how they assemble their templates, how they assemble their reports. So that's been really interesting to pick up a few tips on. So I'm hoping to line up a few more virtual seminars in the future, I think.
Great. Yeah. And then, that gives you all the ammunition you need to challenge the status quo if you want to, if you can find a better way or think actually, there are great ideas that come out of, other conferences and sessions like that you can help implement for the benefit of the, everybody around you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've definitely found actually the that kind of innovation. I think towards the beginning, I was a bit worried. I was thinking, I don't feel very kind of proactive with my work. But as I've got more familiar with it, especially, I don't want to say I've become a bit of a specialist, but I've dealt with a lot of annual suitability reviews. So it's something that I've kind of, because I've done so many of them and the repetition, I feel like I really know what I'm doing. And whether that's then kind of, tweaking a formula in a spreadsheet, I feel like a lot more confident now. Helping out others and saying, look, you have done it that way, but have you thought about doing it this way? It might be a little bit quicker for you. It might be, you might find it easier to do. And I think that, I feel like definitely going forward, you can kind of feel like the cogs whirring a little bit more now. Thinking, I know that this is how I've done it in the past, but I think this way might work. I know sometimes I've tried it recently and it hasn't quite helped me out in the way I thought it might. But it's definitely getting there now.
Yeah. Fantastic. So I will take Tom's email address and I will email him and ask him to ask you some tax questions next time. So, Megan, what have you got planned as far as training goes over the next few months? Have you got things in the pipeline as well?
So company-wise, we've been doing quite a lot of internal training at Apricity, on the system, because we like to practice what we preach, and we're all working towards our CPD on our annual tests, like anti-bribery and corruption tests, these are all things that we ask our advisors to work on. So it's good for us on the other side to have that fundamental understanding as well, just should any questions arise from it, at least then I'll know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely. Great.
We've got a round table meeting with the Art of Finance tomorrow, our training school, where we'll be discussing prod. So it'll be nice to get some insight on that and cement it and, get it cemented into my brain when I discuss that with clients as well. And I'm still working closely with our two consultants in Apricity, Paul and Christian, where we work with firms on our outsourced training and competence schemes. So we're actually close to getting 100 individuals on the scheme now, and we meet every single one of them at least once in a quarter. So it's, very heavily involved in those meetings, definitely. So I've actually had a chat with one of my bosses, and I'd quite like to go down the coaching route in future. So hopefully some coaching training will be on the cards at some point once my diploma's out of the way.
Fantastic. I'm sure I will drop you an email. Some great coaching books out there that'll help you along your way as well. But I think there's nothing like rolling your sleeves up and actually starting doing coaching. Supporting the people. But it sounds like actually both of you are doing that already, aren't you? Because James is doing it as well with Tom, he's supporting, and basically very similar sort of thing. So it sounds like you've had a great Christmas. Obviously got a grip of, that work-life balance is coming into play again now, which is very important and great to hear. And both of you are still really enjoying it. And it's great to hear, Megan, that you are, developing skills and actually starting to think about, what the future might hold as well, as far as coaching goes. Because I think actually, in management, coaching is a very important element to management, isn't it? Much underrated, I think, by managers. So, but pair of you developing great skills there is fantastic. And coming up to 12 months. And how's 12 months gone by in a flash?
Oh, so quickly. I can't believe that we've been here a year. And, we've already got 2 exams out of the way. Hopefully we'll have had our 3rd passed on the day that we've started our second cycle of the grad scheme. So I think it's been a bit of a whirlwind. We've had exposure to different aspects of the company. We started doing DGing, data gathering, and then onto power planning. For me, I went back into apricity on compliance. So I think it's been generally an overall sound exposure into the financial industry.
Yeah. And both, found out a lot about yourself. James, what have you found out about yourself in the last 12 months?
Well, I found out that I definitely need to plan a lot more than I thought I did, especially when I was at university. I was very much kind of, I'll do it on a whim. I don't need to plan what I'm writing. It will just come to me kind of in a vision kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think that I've definitely found that in the world of work, it doesn't quite come as easily as that. And I think that especially time management and interpersonal skills are definitely something that I needed to work on, and something that I perhaps took for granted when I first started. I feel like when I started, I was very concerned about the fact that I don't have any experience and will listen to me in my new role. But I think you can really feel that knowledge can kind of be learned. It is those skills that as long as you have those skills and that desire to learn, I think that you can do very well at it.
Yeah, definitely, completely agree. And Megan, how about you? What would you say? How are you different than you were this time last year?
I think I've discovered that I'm quite process driven, which is ironically suited to compliance, with it being a very process driven industry. I've made schedules for myself, do this at this time, do this at this time, which has helped. I've discovered I'm quite an organized person. But I think some things I've realized don't come as easy to me, like the tax calculations, different layers of, I suppose, tax planning. That's, for me, is quite challenging. But I think so long as you know where your, not so much weaknesses, but where your development areas are, and have discussed this with those that you find will listen and help you in the appropriate manner, I think you'll be able to flourish.
Yes, definitely. And, as I said before, tax isn't an easy subject for anybody out there. Don't believe anybody who says that it's easy, because it isn't, with it changing so many times. And so it's great, that you can reach out to people to give you the support, find the right people to give you that support that you need. Because then, in a few months' time, the boot will be on the other foot, and then you'll be able to return the favour and support them, won't you?
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, As always, I don't know where the time goes, but we have run out of time today. But it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to both of you today and to hear about what you've got up to and how things are going coming up to the end of your first year with the Verve Group in its entirety, in its new form. So I just wanted to say it's been a real pleasure today, and thank you so much both to James and to Megan for joining me.
And thank you for having us, Jackie.
Thank you, Jackie.
I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. It's really interesting, isn't it, to listen to other people's points of view about different things, all relating to our wonderful financial planning profession. If you know anyone who might be interested in listening to any of these podcasts, please pass on our details to them. So that's it from me. Join me again next time when we'll be talking all things certified financial planner related and also dropping in on our new entrants to the financial planning profession. Bye for now.